Good morning, honorable members of the Senate, as well as our guests and those joining online. We are so pleased to be here for another Youth Senate proceedings. We now wish to welcome to the chamber, everyone please stand, our Honorable Minister, the Honorable Mario Bolag, along with our Parliamentary Secretary in the person of the Honorable Leonardo Lightbourne. And now, please, let's welcome the President of the Senate, the Honorable J. Lachelle Adderley. We now invite Madam President to give remarks, and she will invite remarks from our Honorable Minister in advance of today's official proceedings. Thank you so much. You may be seated.
On today, the youth senators have assembled in our nation's upper chamber at the culmination of Youth Month. The month of October is observed as Youth Month. This is always an exciting time in our nation's history, where the youth are celebrated, achievements highlighted, cohesiveness underscored, future goals supported, and focused determination to leave this Bahama land in a better place. The culmination of Youth Month is your participation and contribution to today's proceedings as duly sworn in youth senators. Here we are under the canopy of the Senate chamber, the hall where laws are actually passed, the halls of democracy, where you have come to debate and speak your truth regarding policy, democratic principles, and the rule of law. Indeed, you have made history as the first cohort of duly sworn-in senators in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. You are not only pace-setters, but you are the future of government and politics in this country. I want to say that again. You are the future of government and politics in this country. You are the natural caretakers of our beloved country. Therefore, you matter. Your truth matters. Your voice matters. You have chosen dialogue over division and participation over passivity. A critical choice in your leadership is to choose a sterling character over corruption, integrity over intolerance, and reputation over repugnance. The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 22:1 that a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. These are critical intrinsic values as you engage citizens and demonstrate your passion and belief towards a better and more productive Bahamas. The average citizen will sense your passion to do what is fundamentally right, thereby making your legacy of governance a lasting one for future generations to emulate. You are also at an inflection point, at an age of unprecedented change, global change, regional change, and national change. Technology, inclusive AI, climate, business, and culture are reshaping how we live, how we lead, and how we move. But that also means that you have the tools previous generations had, no previous generation had. Tools to deepen democracy, connect, innovate, challenge injustice in real time. Make your time count. And as you reflect, I want you to always know and to always understand that your debating style matters. Your contribution matters. Your participation matters. Your discipline matters. More importantly, as citizens of this great Commonwealth of the Bahamas, your investment in this country matters. May God continue to bless each of you youth senators. You've made me all tremendously proud. May God bless this Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and may God bless each and every one of you present here. I welcome to the chamber two of our ministers from the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, the substantive minister, Minister Mario Moxie, the Minister Bola. Apologies, I was thinking church. I welcome Member of Parliament, Minister Mario Bolag, the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, and I also welcome Minister of State, Parliamentary Sec, Lightburn, who is visiting us here also at the upper chamber. At this time, I'd like to welcome Minister Mario Bolag to the upper chamber and invite him to bring brief remarks.
Thank you, Madam President, and to the honorable senators here today. I just want to give you a few words of encouragement to let you know that many are called and few are chosen. Many persons does not understand that quote in the Bible when it means that there are many are called and few are chosen. You are not here today by accident or by mistake. Nothing in life is an accident or mistake. You are here today because before you was conceived in your mother's womb, the Lord has a plan for you. A man plan his way, but the Lord direct his path. You are here today because you're supposed to be here. You are here today because there is a plan for you, at least to your present characteristics and purpose in life, and also your future purpose in life. And so I hope that you will take this opportunity and use it to the best of your ability for the greater good, not for yourselves, but for the Bahamian people. Because what you do today can also impact us for the future. And we must move forward in this country understanding that everything we do is not for ourselves, but for those who have yet to come behind us. Because as we now bridge the gap between the past, the present, and the future, you are part of those who has to sit with us, who are sitting presently in these chambers, to ensure that the decision we make that will positively impact you, and as you come behind, whether you decide to take the road of frontline politics or a nation builder at some point, or just a concerned citizen, your involvement helps us who are policymakers to make the right decision to move this country forward. Whether it's one that is always in your belief or not, sometimes we have to make a decision whether we believe in it or not. But if it's for the greater good for the majority of people, then that's what we should stand. And always also remember that when you do something, that if you believe in it, you should stand, even if it means standing alone. At the end of the day, I always said, Madam President, it's the reason why nowadays they don't bury you like this no more. You know, you used to be buried like that, and now they put your hand lower. I said, well, they definitely was going to put my hand lower, because when they bury me, they was going to bury me empty, because I was going to leave everything off my chest. And the world was going to know what I had to say. I meant what I said, and I mean what I say for the greater good for the Bahamian people. And I also believe that the greatest asset of this country is you, our young people. And so our investment into you, the opportunities that we give to you to allow you to sit in these chambers, and for an opportunity to practice some of the things that you see us do, but preparing yourselves also to sit here one day and lead this country when we decide to step off the scene. Gone are the days you will find persons want to be in these halls for 40, 50 plus years as in the past. That time has changed. The cards will be shuffled and changed more frequently than we would like. But at the end of the day, you will never know when your number is called, So, like they say, sit small until it's called, and when that time comes, be prepared and ready to serve your nation. So, with that, Madam President, I thank you for this opportunity, and I wish you all the best, and that your deliberations inside your debates will be one that will be always in the back of your mind for the greater good and the betterment for all Bahamian people. Thank you.
Thank you for offering those kind words, Minister Mario Boleg. And with that, I shall take my leave, and I wish you all the very best in your deliberations. I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you today. May God bless all of you. Thank you.
Please stand.
Honorable Senators, I invite one of you to nominate from among yourselves a senator to be president. Is there a seconder?
I rise to second the motion.
Honorable Senators, it has been moved and seconded that Senator Lisa Lightbourne be president of the Senate. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Teasdale Lightbourne has been elected president.
Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, honorable senators. Allow me to offer a brief devotion, and this devotion will come from the Bible text, Luke chapter 22, verses 31 to 32. And it reads, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift each of you like wheat, but I have prayed for you so that your faith should not fail, and when you have repented and turned to me again, strengthen your brothers. And in this text, Jesus knew that the enemy, the devil, wanted something that he overseed, wanted something that he represented, and that was his disciples. And I want to remind some and inform others that the enemy, the devil, wants something that you oversee, wants something that you represent, and that is the youth and young adults of this nation. But Jesus knew how to combat and how to rebuke and how to repel the enemy's plan, and that is by praying. He said, Simon, I prayed for you. And I want to tell you, honorable senators, that you should be praying for the youth and young adults of this nation. And when I say pray, I mean in the literal sense, but I also want to give you this quick acronym of pray. P, positively impact the youth and young people of this nation by how you discuss in your deliberations. And everything that you do should be to positively impact them. You are to respect each other around the table, regardless of what side you are on, and respect the youth and young people of this nation. A, you are to attend to the youth and the young people's needs. What is it that they want? What is it that they need? What can positively impact them? So as you discuss, as you deliberate, you have to remember, honorable senators, that this is a selfless role. That is not about what you want to see, but it's what the young people, the people you represent, wants to see. And finally, you have to yearn for them to do well. You have to want them to earnestly do well, so much so that you think of them as yourself. And you are the young people of this nation. So remember, as I conclude, that Jesus prayed for the people who was under him, the people who he represented. And you have to also pray, positively impact. Represent them. You have to attend to their needs, and you have to yield for them to do well. Allow us to pray. Our Father, in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, Madam President.
Good morning, Youth Senate, members of the gallery, and online viewers. I start my formal remarks by recognizing the senators and special guests in the gallery. Thank you to Senator the Honorable J. Lachelle Adderley, Madam President of the Senate, and her fellow senators who carry out vital work in this chamber and to whom my fellow youth senators look up to. Thank you for your gracious and wise leadership and guidance. I am personally grateful to you. We also have the Honorable Mario Boleg, the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, and the Member of Parliament for Garden Hills. Thank you for your presence here and supporting us. We also have the Honorable Leonardo Lightbourne, the Member of Parliament for North Andros and the Berry Islands, and the Parliamentary Secretary for the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. Additionally, we have Dr. Sandra Dean Patterson of the Bahamas Crisis Center, along with Keon Albury, Maudlene Cooper, and Owen Coakley. Thank you for adorning us with white ribbons during this first week of November to show that we do not tolerate violence against women and children. To my honorable youth senators, we finally made it. It has been an incredible journey together over the last year. Thank you for your support, encouragement, lessons, and constructive feedback. I'm a better, more graceful, and meticulous leader for it. To journey through this program alongside such bold, passionate, and astute leaders has been a treasure. I celebrate your success as if it were my own, and I stand in prayer for you when you face complex journeys. To my Vice President, Corey Hamilton, congratulations on the opportunity to represent the Bahamas at the International Labor Organization Conference in Switzerland, along with the Caribbean to Canada Dialogue 2025, and on being named a 40 Under 40 nominee. To Youth Senators Hannah Miller and Rayangelo Seymour, congratulations on becoming 1 degree hotter by completing your Bachelor of Public Administration degree at the University of the Bahamas this summer. To Youth Senators Dion McKinney, Lashante Sampson, and Rolna Paul, along with our young clerk Tyrese Bunch, congratulations on taking new steps in your academic journeys in the United States of America, Barbados, and England to sharpen your tools for greater impact. Kudos to Youth Senators Lashante Sampson, Jason Monker in his absence, and Trey Bethel in his absence for being nominated as National Youth Awardees. And special kudos to Sister Senator Lashante for taking the Prime Minister's Cup. To my sister Senator Hannah Miller, myself, and our Black Rod Isaac Barr, I celebrate our impact at the 18th Regional Youth Parliament of the 47th Commonwealth Parliamentary Association's Conference for the Caribbean, Americas, and the Atlantic region. Thanks to our parliamentarians' nominations, including Madam Senate President, and the coordination of the Bahamas Parliament team, with special mention to Asheran Lightbourne, they truly helped us to unlock our voices to speak truth to power at the regional level, where we presented speeches alongside other Bahamians and Caribbean youth to provide recommendations to CARICOM on ways we can hold the world's major polluters accountable for the state of Earth's climate. To Youth Senators Jason Monker, Jordan Clark, and our very own coordinator, Lauren Ashley Hasty, congratulations on securing executive level roles in your Toastmasters clubs. And again to our VP on completing his presidency in his Rotary Club and becoming a division level leader. We're doing big things. To Youth Senator Ernesto Williams, the youth have you to thank for vivacious, clear, and strategic leaders for your leadership for 2 Toastmasters clubs, and for being an extraordinary educator. To Youth Senator Dylan Grant, you hold a quiet but forceful presence in Eleuthera as you go higher in your legal training and volunteer pursuits. To Youth Senator to my sister Senator, Kay Reva Roll, for soaring in the Caribbean Women in Leaderships. She leads program to strengthen her capacity as a dynamic and strategic female leader in the Bahamas region. To Dr. Brandon Bethel, you are a force to reckon with and deserve special commendation for your cutting-edge research in the oceanography space. In his absence, I want to say congratulations to Senator Xavier Knowles on starting a new opportunity, and to our fellow youth senator, Trey Bethel, who engaged in holy matrimony with his beautiful wife, Sharika. Last but not least, to our chief clerk with healing hands, Nurse Darnique Sands. We stand in agreement to pray a special prayer of divine healing for you. We miss you, and we will see you very soon. I'm genuinely humbled and honored to have the opportunity to continue serving as president. I give all glory, honor, and praise to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for being my Redeemer, my peace, and source of hope, for placing me here over the last 9 months of our first year, and for trusting me to continue to move forward into our second year. The Lord is so kind and merciful for taking a little girl born and raised in Mount Pleasant Village with ancestral roots in Stanyard Creek, Andros, Mactown, Grand Bahama, and Bannerman Town, Eleuthera, to this honorable upper chamber. If nothing else, this moment serves as a reminder both to myself and our viewers that God can take beauty for ashes. And my prayer is that those who may have faced hardship can reflect on their lives and recognize that our lives matter to God. He truly has a special plan for each of us, and that He can and will use anyone for His glory. It is truly an honor to be His representative and mouthpiece, even if only for this season. To my fellow Bahamians listening via live stream and on radio, while it is a valued privilege to gather in these halls, we are not disconnected from your life experiences. And this session and future sessions, as we say in Bahamian vernacular, is not for poppy show or for our parents. My fellow youth senators, we share the same joys, we grieve over the same hurts, and we are passionate about what affects us all. Regardless of the party or colors, we are burdened by what is happening in our nation, especially amongst our fellow youth. Feelings of hopelessness and despair that lead to poor mental health and suicide, toxic masculinity that encourages gender-based violence and sexual exploitation and abuse, fear and uncertainty about jobs and housing, economic shocks that increase hustling culture and corruption, oppression and limited skills that block our livelihoods, and climate changes and unhealthy built environments that threaten the survival and well-being of our people, animals, and environment. While this all sounds discouraging, please know that these fellow youth senators stand in agreement to speak truth to power and to advocate for the changes that we need to thrive. We all commit to integrity, courage, passion, and forward thinking. Simply put, and again I will use Bahamian vernacular to express this, we have no intention on slapping up or running on. Our nation is at a critical juncture that requires trend-setting, thoughtful discourse that lead to transformational policies, laws, and regulations. Guided by our Heavenly Father, and with the least of us in mind, my fellow youth senators will do our part to make recommendations that advance equity and justice for children as far west on Nelson Road, to those taking their siblings to school in Carmichael Road in the center, and those in the east in Fox Hill. We will make sure to look at the bright stars in every family island, from the child in the rocks in Grand Bahama in the northwest, all the way down to Matthewtown and Nago in the southeast. Not only are we speaking up for you, but we are making space for you to serve in these hallowed halls as well. This space is for you as well. I give thanks to the Division of Youth and the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture for expanding the National Youth Parliament program to go beyond a day-long sitting to a now two-year commitment to create real and lasting change. This can now be a space for youth to shine and shed light on what matters most. And we will make room and keep the door open so that you build upon our momentum. We may not get it right, and so we welcome your feedback to challenge us to be better and more in tune with you. We are here to serve you because we are you. Thank you for trusting us. Resolutions.
Madam President, I
The chair recognizes Senator Rollner Paul.
Madam President, I rise to move the following resolution. Whereas artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies are increasingly influencing decision-making, research, governance, and communication across the globe. Whereas the integration of AI and ML algorithms, methodologies, and techniques into government operations and academic institutions in the Bahamas presents opportunities for innovation, efficiency, and modernization within public administration and education. And whereas these emerging technologies also pose significant challenges, including data, privacy concerns, algorithmic bias, misinformation, and the potential displacement of traditional employment sectors. And whereas the Data Protection Privacy of Information Act 2025 of the Bahamas establishes a legal framework to safeguard the collection, storage, and use of personal data, thereby serving as a crucial mechanism for regulating how AI and ML systems handle and process sensitive information. And whereas it is essential to ensure that the implementation of AI and ML in the Bahamas remains consistent with the principles of data protection, transparency, accountability, and respect for individual privacy rights as outlined in the aforementioned Act. Be it resolved that the members assembled for this third session of the National Youth Assembly of the Bahamas shall debate the opportunities and challenges associated with the development and use of artificial intelligence and machine learning, algorithms, methodologies, and techniques being implemented within government and academic systems. Be it further resolved that this National Youth Assembly shall consider how the Bahamas can harness the benefits of these emerging technologies while safeguarding citizens' rights through social, cultural, educational, technological, and legislative measures in alignment with the Data Protection, Privacy of Personal Information Act 2025. Madam President, permit me from the genesis of my contribution to borrow the prudent words of Barack Obama. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Madam President, it is against this backdrop that I judge it necessary to be the voice crying out in the wilderness for revitalization, modernization, and innovation. As Bahamians, we must be reminded that we live in an ever-changing world in which we are forced to be adaptable and agile. As global citizens, we are innovators and game changers. The resolution of artificial intelligence and the Data Protection Act being tabled today is asking the members of this illustrious body to make a move that will create a paradigm shift within Bahamian history. My esteemed colleagues, the resolution before us hands us a key that will open doors to every Bahamian if we act intelligently and symbiotically. The resolution at hand requires an answer that will create a new chapter in the lives of Bahamian youth across the Bahama land. Madam President, the resolution that lies before us today must be commended from the outset for serving as an architect and an engineer. This resolution this morning gives us a plan that can build our country to a more common loftier goal. This legal document, with the aid of the Data Protection Act 2025, is able to build bridges and close gaps, one island at a time. This simply means if we can stand in solidarity with this resolution, we are able to tackle and defeat the various issues that plague us as a people. If we continue to look at the cons of artificial intelligence, we will miss our opportunity to rise to the occasion. Madam President, we are being asked to change our angle. We are in an epoch that requires us to build a Bahamas that can survive in any climate of the era. I use the words of American constitutional attorney Paul Freund. We should never be influenced by the weather of the day, but inevitably by the climate of the era. The climate of our era requires disruptive thinking. The climate of our era requires a now, not a tomorrow, not a next week, not for the next general election. It is crying for a now move. The pupil in the Abaco district needs us to move this resolution so that he or she can jump on board with expanding their educational courses. The young professional in Michael is yearning for AI to be embedded into the system so that they are able to approach the task in a timely fashion. The climate of the era is calling out. Will we answer the call? Will we set the standard for the now? Not only is the legislation an effective and efficient architect and engineer, but it is also a panacea. As a country that faces a multitude of social maladies, AI will strategically assist in bringing holistic solutions that work for Bahamians. We are faced with teacher shortages, educational gaps, climate change, and food insecurity. With these maladies, AI opens the doors for us as a country to address these ailments, which AI can address strategically and soberly. This is not the time for us to back down or evade this opportunity, but we must run towards it openly. I am reminded of a principle. Action makes heroes, but excuses make zeros. Madam President, which one will we be this morning? Heroes or zeros? The educational system needs heroes. The healthcare system needs heroes. Our environment needs heroes. While I could belabor on the benefits of AI and the numerous pros that it comes with, today we need action. Time to expunge procrastination. Time to crush the voices that continue to sing that we are not prepared to embrace AI. While we are small in size and number, I refuse to allow our size to dictate our strength. I refuse to allow our size to dictate what we can accomplish. Yes, we are small, but our mindsets cannot mirror our size. We must remember it is always the small people who accomplish big things. We have done it in the past, and we can do it now. This is what our motto means. Forward, upward, onward, together. This resolution complements our country's motto. We are only going up from here. We were not designed to be reactive and regressive, but we were wired to be proactive and progressive. This can only be achieved if we work collaboratively. Madam President, I do understand that there are many individuals who question AI due to the threats that it may pose to society. However, I echo the words of Prime Minister Miramar Motley. We must create a balance in the regulation of artificial intelligence. As legislators, we are the guardians of our people's well-being and safety. I assure every Bahamian citizen that the Data Protection Act 2025 is written in a language that protects every Bahamian from the dangers of AI. If we continue to look at it from the angle of a villain, we will never see it as an asset to create victors. Madam President, if not now, when? When will we be ready? When will we accept AI? If not now, when? We must always remember time is of the essence. Proverbs 29 verse 18 states, where there is no vision, the people perish. This is vision. This is life being infused in us again. This is our comeback. This is our time to take our rightful place as global citizens who can compete nationally, regionally, and internationally. We can, we will, and we must. Madam President, I have a dream that when this resolution is passed, government agencies will deliver more efficient and timely work. I have a dream where students on the Family Island will not fall prey to the many scarcities in our systems. I have a dream where our Bahamas will be the beacon that leads other countries into the AI world. This is my dream. However, to accomplish this dream, I need your help. I need your yes. I need your will. I need your action. Yes, I need you. Without you, we remain stagnant. But with you, we will be able to conceive solutions that work. Today is that day for revitalization, modernization, and innovation. Today is that day to let change in. Madam President, I end with this quote from the character Master Ugwe. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift. That is why it is called the present. So, Madam President, let us accept this present as a wake-up call to accept this resolution and produce today's solution. Madam President, I thank you.
Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator Jordan Clark.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to second the motion. Madam President, before I make my contribution, with your leave, I would like to recognize 3 young people who I believe have left this world too soon. Lauren Saunders. and two who were like family to me, Jamiko Hall and 5-year-old Cario Tulok. Today, I rise in support of the resolution on artificial intelligence and machine learning, not merely as technological concepts, Madam President, but as the architects of the next era of Bahamian innovation and public administration. We stand at the threshold of what the World Economic Forum calls the fourth industrial revolution, where artificial intelligence is reshaping how societies function, how we learn, to how we govern, and how we live. According to a 2024 PwC report, AI could contribute up to $15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030, with emerging economies like ours standing to gain significantly from early adaptation. The Bahamas has an extraordinary opportunity to modernize public administration and education through AI integration. Imagine smarter disaster response systems that use predictive algorithms to anticipate hurricanes, optimize evacuation routes, and protect lives, all in real time. AI can strengthen public health care through data-driven diagnostics, enhance education via personalized learning tools, and streamline government services to improve efficiency. The United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, has already highlighted AI's potential to reduce bureaucratic bottlenecks and promote good governance in small island developing states, Madam President. But innovation without integrity is chaos. To ensure that our technological transformation aligns with our values, we must pair AI's potential with strong data protection principles. The newly drafted Data Protection Bill 2025 recognizes privacy as a human right, Madam President. Section 5 mandates that personal data must be processed lawfully, fairly, and transparently. Section 11 strengthens this further, requiring appropriate technological and organizational measures to ensure data security. These provisions are not just administrative, Madam President. They are moral. In an age where data is the new currency, this bill safeguards our citizens from exploitation. It also ensures that AI systems operating in the Bahamas, whether in government, education, or the private sector, adhere to ethical standards of consistency, accuracy, and accountability. Let us not forget, data protection is people protection. Every data set represents a Bahamian, a student, a voter, a patient, whose dignity must never be traded for convenience, Madam President. We must acknowledge the risks. In 2023, a Harvard Business Review study found that 44% of AI systems tested contained measurable gender or racial bias in their outputs. Left unchecked, AI can reinforce existing inequalities rather than reduce them. This is why Section 7 of the Data Protection Bill emphasizes fairness, Madam President, ensuring that processing meets the legitimate and reasonable expectations of data subjects and does not cause unjustified detriment to any group. Our policy direction must therefore prioritize ethical AI algorithms that reflect Bahamian values of fairness, inclusion, and respect. Madam President, this requires diverse data, transparent models, and oversight mechanisms such as the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner established under Section 12. As a youth leader, I firmly believe that our generation must not only use AI, we must understand and govern it. The resolution calls for educational integration, and rightly so, Madam President. AI literacy should be embedded within our national curriculum, preparing Bahamian youth not just to be consumers of technology, but creators. The World Bank's 2024 Caribbean Digital Readiness Report noted that 37% of Caribbean tertiary institutions currently offer AI or data science courses. If we are to remain competitive, Madam President, we must invest in training young Bahamians in coding, ethics, and digital governance. This is more than workforce preparation. It is nation building. AI should never replace human judgment, Madam President. It should enhance it. The resolution on AI emphasizes transparency, accountability, aligning with principles of the Data Protection Act, Chapter 324A, and its forthcoming 2025. As Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, reminds us, technology must have a clear purpose to serve humanity, not replace it. So I say today in full support of this resolution, let the Bahamas lead the Caribbean in AI governance. Let us embrace innovation without abandoning our humanity. Let us ensure that in the age of algorithms, Madam President, it is still people, not programs, who define our nation's future. Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas artificial intelligence, or AI, and machine learning, further known as ML, technologies are increasingly influencing decision-making, research, governance, and communication across the globe. And whereas the integration of AI and ML algorithms, methodologies, and techniques into government operations and academic institutions in the Bahamas presents opportunities for innovation, efficiency, and modernization within public administration and education. And whereas these emerging technologies also pose significant challenges, including data privacy concerns, algorithmic bias, misinformation, and the potential displacement of traditional employment sectors. And whereas the Data Protection, Privacy of Personal Information Act 2003 of the Bahamas establishes a legal framework to safeguard the collection, storage, and use of personal data, thereby serving as a crucial mechanism for regulating how AI and ML systems handle and process sensitive information. And whereas it is essential to ensure that the implementation of AI and ML in the Bahamas remains consistent with the principles of data protection, transparency, accountability, and respect for individual privacy rights as outlined in the aforementioned Act. Be it resolved that the members assembled for this third session of the National Youth Assembly of the Bahamas shall debate the opportunities and challenges associated with the development and use of artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms, methodologies, and techniques being implemented within government and academic systems. Be it further resolved that this National Youth Assembly shall consider how the Bahamas can harness the benefits of these emerging technologies while safeguarding citizens through social, cultural, educational, technological, and legislative measures in data protection, Privacy of Personal Information Act 2025. As many, the chair recognizes Senator Dr. Brandon Bethel.
Thank you, Madam President. I would take just a second to see that Senator Clark has preempted a portion of what I wanted to say, but I'll go a bit deeper here. As many of us heard over the past few years, artificial intelligence, AI, has rapidly been integrated into many facets of social life, ranging from identifying human faces and answering our most inane questions on the smartphones in our pockets, up to, most worryingly, being used to redefine what is meant by modern warfare on far too many battlefields. In our schools, the rise of tools such as ChatGPT has provided students opportunities not only to accelerate the rate of their learning by being able to quickly and effectively conduct research, it has unfortunately also led to negative side effects. For example, it is not difficult to understand that the use of these programs and others have led to increased rates of plagiarism. This undermines academic integrity, causing job loss and reductions in human creativity and ingenuity. There have also been cases where professionals have misused the tool and allowed errors, both major and minor, to creep into their work. Thus, This has major negative ramifications for many sectors of our society, but for the moment, I would like to draw our attention towards an area where artificial intelligence tools can benefit the Bahamian people. Madam President, I wish to use my time to share with you a possible direction that the nation can take with regards to the adoption of AI techniques. As I'm sure that the nation is aware, Hurricane Melissa barreled through Jamaica, plowed through Cuba, and dashed through our central and southern islands with reckless abandon. While the Department of Meteorology and the Disaster Risk Management Authority, alongside other agencies, have done an impeccable job in forecasting the trajectory and possible effects of the hurricane, thereby leading to a prescient decision by Prime Minister Davis to order an evacuation ahead of the storm, I suggest that new breeds of AI tools to be used to enhance our ability to counter the next storm. Let me be clear, I am not referring to either ChatGPT, Grok, or DeepSeek that are large language models that imitate human intellect and speech. Instead, I am referring to techniques that can allow for many decades of hurricane information. This includes, but is not limited to, their wind speed and direction, air pressure, wave heights, and the storm surge that they produce to be studied and used to provide forecasts for a future storm. Having insight into these and other variables in the crucial 24 and 12 hours prior to hurricanes landfalling can be the difference between life or death for our people. Artificial intelligence techniques may allow us to make even more precise forecasts of hurricane activity to give the people that we serve more information that they need to make decisions in the best interest of their families before, during, and after these natural disasters. Madam President, I recognize that these tools and methodologies are new, but the advantage is that they are currently being widely used in a variety of research and operational fields. They are also likely to form an integral part of where the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasting of the United Kingdom and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration of the United States will take the next iterations of their operational models. These are just some of our international partners from which we derive a lot of the model, satellite, and radar data that we use on a daily basis to make forecasts. We are already in the process of converting the old Bahamas telecommunications building on JFK Drive to house a data center. The computational infrastructure within that data center is crucial to allow artificial intelligence techniques to be fed with vast quantities of data so that we can be ready for the next storm. The same tools can also be used to pursue forms of renewable energy beyond solar, whether at land or on sea. And these, of course, include on and offshore wind, wave, ocean thermal, current, and tidal energies, that as all would depend on the same forecasting capabilities. Integrating artificial intelligence techniques in the forecasting of electricity demand during summer months can also aid our power providers nationwide to bring additional power generation capabilities, crucially, before load shedding is required. I hold it as an article of faith that we as a nation are only strengthened by challenges such as those posed by hurricanes. I believe that we have an opportunity to prepare for the next storm through introducing AI tools to weather and disaster risk management applications, not tomorrow, but today. If God is on our side, and we already know that this is true, then there are no mountains that we cannot climb. We should pursue the responsible use of artificial intelligence not only in our daily lives, but to ensure that we are no longer merely resilient, but we can call ourselves that which we already know is the case, strong. Thank you, Madam President.
As many, the chair recognizes Senator Corey Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, before I make my contribution this morning, I just want to publicly thank you for the work you have done this year. And may the Lord continue to strengthen you from day to day. Today we stand at a turning point in our nation's history, one not shaped by brick and mortar, by algorithms, data, and innovation. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are no longer distant concepts. They are influencing how the world communicates, governs, educates, and works. And now they're knocking on the doors of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. AI presents tremendous opportunities. It can streamline government services, modernize our educational system, improve healthcare, strengthen law enforcement, and make our public administration more efficient. Around the world, countries are using AI to improve traffic systems, detect fraud, support farmers, and elevate the classroom learning experience. There is no reason the Bahamas cannot do the same. In fact, we must. If we want to keep pace with a rapidly advancing global economy, Madam President, we must action now. However, with the opportunity comes responsibility. AI and machine learning bring significant challenges. The risk of algorithm biases, increased misinformation data privacy threats, and concerns of how certain jobs can change or even disappear. These concerns are not imaginary. They are happening across the world. As young leaders, we must ensure that the Bahamas is prepared. Thankfully, we are not starting from zero. We already have a strong legal foundation in the Data Protection Act 2003, which protects how personal data is used and instructs the act becomes even more important. It reminds us that technology progress must never come at an expense of privacy, transparency, or the dignity of Bahamian citizens. But laws written in 2003 cannot fully address the 2025 problems. Therefore, this resolution calls us to look critically on how AI is introduced and how we can strengthen our legislation, our cultural awareness, our educational system, and our public institution to manage these emerging technologies. Madam President, this debate is not simply about machines. It's about people. It's about protecting the citizens' rights. It's about empowering Bahamians to complete the future workforce. And it is about ensuring that AI becomes a tool as a national development and not a threat to our society. If we approach AI with wisdom, regulation, and innovation, the Bahamas can harness these tools to build a more efficient, more informed, and more prosperous nation. Therefore, Madam President, I stand to support the resolution today and encourage my fellow members to engage in this debate with clear minds and forward thinking, a commitment to safeguarding the rights of the future of the Bahamian people. Thank you, Madam President.
As many. The chair recognizes Senator LaShante Sampson.
Madam President, I rise today humbled and deeply honored to address the Senate on a matter of profound national consequence, the resolution before us concerning artificial intelligence and machine learning in the Bahamas. In the spirit of this chamber's deliberations, allow me to begin not with theory, but with reality. In 2025, I still carry my immunization record on green construction paper, my voter's card on purple construction paper, though I've been advised that a biometric system is finally underway, and a national insurance card with a smart chip that connects to absolutely nothing. Yet, here we are, debating artificial intelligence. It is an irony that speaks for itself, a paradox of progress. Because before we speak of artificial intelligence, we must first cultivate institutional intelligence, the systems, infrastructure, and data readiness that makes technology meaningful. Let's be honest, we cannot automate what we have not yet organized. In the face of data fragmentation, AI simply cannot function meaningfully. And so the question becomes, are we there yet? Because when our health, education, and social systems still rely on paper records, the promise of AI sounds inspiring, but it feels distant. And so for me, the conversation shouldn't start with AI adoption, but with digital transformation, with data standards rooted in governance, cybersecurity, and citizen trust. What we need is digital maturity before digital ambition. Because without digitization, there can be no artificial intelligence, only artificial aspirations. Our challenge right now is not embracing the innovation that comes with emerging technologies, but addressing the current lack of integration across our government and academic systems. It is ensuring that our people, especially our young Bahamians, are equipped with the digital and ethical literacy to use these tools wisely. And this is not just a technical problem. It is a question of national direction. Because the more disconnected our systems remain, the less control we have over how our data, our identity, and our decisions are shaped in a digital world. Madam President, may I submit that in this country, sovereignty is no longer defined by borders on a map. It is about who owns our data and whose values are encoded in the systems we use. The Bahamas cannot afford to be digitally dependent on imported algorithms built for other societies. So the new structure for small states is for algorithmic sovereignty, the right to define how our data is collected, processed, and protected. Our recently tabled Data Protection Bill 2025 builds that foundation. It strengthens oversight through an independent data protection commissioner and demands transparency from anyone who processes Bahamian data. And so if independence gave us political freedom, algorithmic sovereignty must give us digital freedom. But sovereignty means little without the capacity to create. And so the next step should be to turn that freedom into function, to move from simply guarding our data to using it wisely, to begin designing technologies that speak to our realities and needs. The truth is that small states like ours may not build the next ChatGPT, but can build smart local systems that solve Bahamian problems. Imagine AI tools that track hurricanes, as Senator Bethel has said, that optimizes our marine conservation efforts, that predicts crop yields in our agriculture sector, and strengthen financial transparency in our banking sector. That is what I call Bahamian intelligence. Not artificial intelligence imported from elsewhere, but relevant intelligence grown here. So, colleagues, we don't need big data to be intelligent, but we do need relevant data to be wise. When we train systems on our realities, we make them see our people. But when we use systems built on foreign realities, they make us invisible. I guess what I'm saying is that Bahamian data must serve Bahamian interest. And we already have a success story to build on. With the sand dollar, we became the first nation to launch a central bank-backed digital currency. This success demonstrates that Bahamians can innovate on their own terms. It shows that we can design technology rooted in trust, transparency, and national identity. And so the next step is to ensure that the systems behind such innovations remain accountable and that our financial data, our digital records, and our identities are protected by law and not left to the mercy of unregulated algorithms. So, Madam President, as we stand at the intersection of innovation and identity, I urge us not to race blindly toward artificial intelligence, but to rise deliberately towards Bahamian intelligence and to a future where technology reflects our values, protects our privacy, and powers our prosperity. And so again, the real question is not whether AI is ready for the Bahamas, but whether the Bahamas is ready for AI. Let us ready ourselves with wisdom, with vision, and with a distinctly Bahamian understanding of what intelligence truly means. Thank you, Madam President.
As many. The chair recognizes Senator Ernesto Williams.
Thank you so much, Madam President, fellow leaders of this incomparable Senate. I rise to note before I begin, Madam President, that the words of my sister Senator Sampson echo strongly. And I not only agree, but I ask that the nation builders and the policy makers across the length and breadth of this Commonwealth be sure to advise and advance the mandates presented in her resolution first, and then myself and my fellow senators. Digital maturity and Bahamian intelligence is key. So once that's corrected, we move on. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow senators, it's about time. It's about time. The Data Protection, Privacy of Personal Information Act 2003 and its soon-to-be tabled upgrade of the Data Protection Bill 2025 holds at its core the protection of our individuals' privacy rights regarding our personal data and regulation of how data controllers and processors, including public and private entities, collect, use, store, and share information according to the principles of fairness, transparency, accuracy, security, and storage limitations through mandatory data breach reports, criminal and administrative penalties for noncompliance, and impact assessments. This is a step forward in regulating artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies so that jobs are not lost. Our country's greatest asset, its young people, are duly invested into, and that we can stand competently on a global stage. This is progressive and necessary in protecting us all. But be that as it may, I don't want to get ahead of myself, Madam President. We do not need another paper policy. By that I mean we don't need something that looks good on paper, but it's not being enforced in reality. The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, the Data Protection Oversight Committee, and of course, nation builders across the length and breadth of this Commonwealth still have a task before them. And so I challenge us with these 4 tasks. Number 1, we need a communication and education strategy. It's something that we speak of consistently in the labor forefront movement. I recommend we call it Your Data, Your Right campaign. It would span a 12-month lifespan, engaging multimedia, public launches and press conferences, partnerships to reach target audiences like the Central Bank, the University of the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute, and the Chamber of Commerce, just to name a few. And of course, we need a simple messaging platform with relatable examples and rights posted across the nation. Free data protection workshops, and I definitely recommend a train-the-trainer program that has and certifies a cadre of data protection superintendents within ministries and companies, and even public ones who would work to guide smaller entities who can't afford them. Secondly, we need the provision of funds to perform this job effectively. From our Caribbean brothers and sisters, namely Jamaica, Barbados, and the Cayman Islands, we can see that the first year of implementation and operational funding amasses significant investments in the hundreds of millions. And that's just for office setup, IT infrastructure, staffing, the communication and strategy plan that I recommended earlier, the legal and technical consultancy that's needed, and of course, capacity building workshops. That means at least 70% of that yearly operational budget should come directly from our parliamentary appropriation in the national budget under the Ministry of Finance, and the remaining to be subsidized from international grants from CARICOM, IDB, or even the Commonwealth Secretariat, since they have digital governance and privacy capacity building funds. In time, the collection of annual regulatory fees, registration, and renewal fees from data controllers and processors can help as well. But thirdly, Madam President, I note that we need to ensure that there is extreme difficulty for political interference to occur. To ensure this, all position appointments and removals of the Commissioner's office and the committee should be gazetted and publicized online. Annual reports should be made to both houses of Parliament, and it should be made public simultaneously. Committee appointments should be drawn from the judiciary, from the University of the Bahamas, from BTVI, from the Chamber of Commerce, even civil society, but not from government. External annual audits of all finances and decisions should be occurring, and of course, that should be publicized with press coverage. And lastly, Madam President, our laborers' future, particularly the youth who will be joining the labor workforce, needs to be our focal point. With these digital transitions taking place, recommendations from the International Labour Organization should be followed. We need legislation from a tripartite negotiated memorandum of understanding for social and economic protection of workers' rights against digital breaches and takeover, So when my child joins the labor workforce, they are protected as well. And that AI and ML integration and data sensitivity secures them and their futures. My fellow senators, Madam President, it is about time. But more importantly, it's about time that we pass practiced and enforceable policy, not paper policy. Let us not fear technology. Let's govern it so it always serves our people and protects our rights. I stand by these recommendations, and I beseech you to do so as well. Thank you.
As many The chair recognizes Senator Dylan Grant.
Madam President, I rise today not merely as a young senator, but a son of Hub Island, a community rooted in heritage, hard work, and also a student of the EEO program. A belief that progress has never come to the expense of principle. Across the world, artificial intelligence is reshaping how we live, work, even think. It writes our story, it predicts our decisions, and increasingly, it governs our system that governs us. Yet, as the Bahamas enters its digital era, we must ask the defining question: will technology serve our people, or will our people reduce to data points within it? Let's be clear. AI holds an extraordinary promise for our country. It can transform how government operate, how students learn, how communities like mine, Harbor Island, and Eleuthera within a whole grows, how it connects. Imagine a future where AI helps fishermen anticipate weather patterns of the weather, or customers, or even the sea life roams. A small businessman can access small financial system built on fairness data analytics, where public servants are faster and transparent. Imagine teachers in the Bahamas using AI tools, where reaches students across the Family Islands with lessons customized for each student's piece. This background comes from the program EEO, as I spoke, which gives students the opportunity to learn in peace and to grow in every aspect which challenges them. The nation develops power of intelligence, but both artificial and human. So, Madam President, innovation without ethics is damaging. It's also a gift, a tool meant to free us, but also can enslave us. We need boundaries, but also balance. Our journey in the new world must be guided, must be valued by law. The Data Protection Policy and Personal Information Act of 2003, it's the forthcoming Data Protection Bill of 2025, reminds us that privacy is not outdated. It is the cornerstone of freedom in digital age. So artificial intelligence is not neutral. It learns from the world we've built. If that world contains bias, inequality, injustice, then AI will multiply those same flaws with lightning speeds. A biased algorithm can deny a loan, a job, or scholarship, not because a person merits it, but because the flaws that's already been implemented in the system. That cannot be the Bahamian way. So as thinkers, as youth, as leaders, we must not only regulate AI, we must humanize it. We must build a system that reflects our nation's value: fairness, integrity, compassion, and respect for human dignity and privacy. Our resolution calls for us to harness these technologies through social culture, educational, technology, and legislative measures. Socially, we must cultivate digital legacies in every Bahamian, understanding both opportunity and risk of AI. Culturally, we must ensure Bahamians' identity, our kindness, our creativeness, our sense of community, which is not lost by a machine driven by the world. Educationally, we must prepare youth Bahamians not only using AI, but to create it, to code, and to question and to control how it will benefit us and those that's coming forth. Technology, we must invest in secure Bahamians on with digital infrastructures, even those who live abroad, so they can connect and give us more what they've learned and bring towards our doorstep. As a student who went abroad, I learned that AI is something that's used daily, but if it's not controlled, it will control us. So lastly, Madam President, as a young behavior, I believe that the measures of progress is not only how advanced AI can become, but it's how Bahamians and in the Bahamas can use it. We should not allow it to control us, but to control how us as Bahamians live and how we move. The future of artificial intelligence in the Bahamas is not about coding. It's not about just computerizing. It's about the consciousness of how humans go forward with their day-to-day. If we act in vision, courage, unity, we can ensure that the Bahamas does not merely adopt a digital mechanism that controls us, but will live amongst us and allow us to generate and become and be equal as the world. It will lead, it will teach ethical and intelligence on what AI is and what it can be and what the Bahamas stands for and what we will grow to be. Thank you, Madam President.
As many. The chair recognizes Senator Kay Revo Roll.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to give all glory to God. And secondly, I would like to give a special congratulations to the inaugural Golden Gates Youth Council and Association. We stand at an inflection point. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are no longer distant curiosities. They are tools already reshaping how government agencies deliver services, how public servants organize work, and how citizens experience the state. The question for the Bahamas isn't whether AI will affect us. It's how will we make the work? How will we make it work for people who create jobs, to create good jobs, fair opportunities, and better services? These technologies can help us. It can take over repetitive tasks, raise productivity, and free people to focus on work that really matters. But there are risks too. Some jobs may disappear. Decisions could be made by systems we don't understand, and workers and citizens could be watched more closely than ever before. But despite that, we need to use AI to help people, not replace or harm them. Let me begin with some opportunities that government agencies sometimes miss. First, AI can be of great assistance to public servants, encouraging them to work smarter instead of harder. It can handle routine paperwork, reducing backlogs, speeding up decisions, and building trust between citizens and governments. Second, it dramatically improves labor market intelligence. It can analyze job openings, skill gaps, and industry trends quickly. This helps government agencies acknowledge which jobs to train people for and what skills schools and employers should focus on. Skills like adaptability and continuous learning to coding, cybersecurity, and cloud computing. Third, it can make services more accessible. Family islands don't have huge tech budgets, if any at all, but cloud-based tools make advanced services affordable. The Digital Transformation Unit has already been making headway through its My Gateway platform, digitizing government documents, and through the Digi Innovative Projects Grant, which encourages local entrepreneurs to develop solutions for public service delivery. These are small steps, but they are important steps. And again, there are challenges. AI can amplify inequalities if we're not careful. Systems trained on data from bigger countries may not fit our local labor market. Some workers could be treated unfairly. It can also replace human judgment if not monitored. Automated profiling, risk scores, or benefit decisions need transparency, checks, and independent review. Privacy is another concern. In small countries, it's easier to identify individuals from data. Citizens could be exposed to harm if data is misused. So what then can our government agencies do? First, they can put people first. Create AI policies that focus on privacy, fairness, accountability, and decent work. Secondly, build skills in-house and help workers adapt. Use AI to see which skills will be needed, then offer trainings, apprenticeships, and support for those moving to new jobs. Thirdly, protect citizens' data. Require minimal data collection, clear purposes, and the right to appeal automated decisions, and human review for high-stake outcomes. And across social, cultural, education, and technological areas, we must, 1, update data protection laws and limit our surveillance technologies like facial recognition unless it's strictly approved. 2, respect behavior, culture, and language. We need to use human checks when AI generates or moderates content. 3, we can teach AI literacy in schools and vocational programs. Train teachers so students learn to use AI responsibly. 4, we need to require checks for all government AI systems to ensure transparency, security, and local capacity building. In conclusion, AI and ML won't automatically create better jobs or services. They reflect the choices that we make. If the Bahamas chooses a people-centered approach, one that values transparency, fairness, skills, and dialogue, AI can improve productivity, services, and work quality. But if we leave decisions to vendors or let AI run unchecked, we risk more inequality and insecurity. So, let's be deliberate. Let's test and innovate boldly, but always govern wisely. Madam President, I yield.
As many, the chair recognizes Senator Rayangelo Seymour.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Madam President, and my fellow colleagues in this honorable assembly. The Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley, once said, "The future is not something that simply happens to us. It is something we must create, shape, and protect." Madam President, this statement is not just poetic. It is rather prophetic. Because the truth is, the future is already here. It's speaking in algorithms, learning through data, and reshaping the way we live. And yes, I'll admit, Madam President, I asked ChatGPT to help me write this speech. So if it sounds too good, please give half of the credit to artificial intelligence. But all fun and jokes aside, AI and machine learning are not just tools of convenience. They are forces of transformation. And whether we like it or not, they are redefining every pillar of modern life: how we learn, how we govern, and how we even think. Madam President, this is our moment to decide who we will be in this new digital era. AI offers us a chance to make government smarter, public services faster, and education more inclusive. Across the Caribbean, There is a growing momentum for technological unity. The Caribbean Telecommunications Union and CARICOM have both called on member states to prepare regional data and AI strategies. They understand that no island can face the digital wave alone, and we must rise together or risk being left behind. For the Bahamas, the potential is extraordinary. AI, for instance, can help the National Insurance Board detect fraud, improve efficiency, and enhance customer service. It can support disaster preparedness, predicting hurricane impacts, and modeling recovery faster than any human system. It could even revolutionize education, giving every student from Auckland to Andros the ability to learn at their own pace with the same quality of access. This is not about replacing people. It's about empowering them. If done right, AI can make government more efficient and more humane. But, Madam President, we must not let our excitement blind us to the dangers. AI systems are only as fair as the data they're trained on. If our data is biased, then so will be our outcomes. Around the region, concerns are already emerging about misinformation on social media, breaches of privacy, and unregulated AI tools being used in sensitive spaces. And Madam President, we cannot afford to let algorithms make decisions about Bahamian lives without proper oversight. Our Data Protection and Privacy of Personal Information Act 2003 and 2025 both laid a strong foundation because the world has changed and our laws must change with it. We need clear, modern policies to ensure that as technology advances, the rights of Bahamians are never, and I repeat, never compromised. Madam President, the Bahamas does not need to follow the rest of the world, but instead we can lead in our own way. We can create a distinctly Caribbean model for artificial intelligence, one that balances progress with principle. Let us, one, develop a national AI framework aligned with CARICOM's digital transformation agenda, ensuring that innovation serves people and not just profit. Establish an AI oversight council to monitor how algorithms are used in public systems and to guarantee fairness and accountability. And three, invest in digital literacy and reskilling so that our people, both young and old, can adapt and thrive in the AI economy. Madam President, we do not need Silicon Valley to validate us. We need to believe that the Caribbean, with our creativity, our resilience, and our intelligence, can set our own standards for ethical innovation. And let us never forget, AI may be powerful, but it can never replace the human heart. It cannot teach compassion, and it definitely cannot replicate integrity. A teacher, for instance, can inspire in no ways no algorithm can. A nurse can comfort in no ways no machine will ever understand. And that is why we must make AI serve humanity and not supplant it. Madam President, I'm aware that not everyone will support this resolution. Hence, we have the opposition. Some may say it's premature that the Bahamas is not ready for artificial intelligence. Rather, some may also argue that we have more pressing issues to fix before turning to technology. But with the greatest respect, Madam President, I say this. If we wait until we are ready, we will always be behind. The digital revolution will not pause to let the Bahamas catch up. It is already transforming global finance, education, and governance, and those who hesitate will be governed by technology instead of through it. Madam President, fear is not a policy, inaction is not protection, and delay is definitely not preparation. If we refuse to engage with AI now, others will design systems that define us, collect our data, and make decisions about Bahamians without Bahamians at the table. We must not be content to simply consume imported technology. We must create and regulate our own. And to those who fear AI will replace workers, I say it is not AI that replaces people. It is the lack of training, adaptation, and leadership that does. We cannot choose to let machines take over, or we can train our citizens to master those machines. This resolution, in closing, Madam President, is not about replacing Bahamians. It is about future-proofing Bahamians. It's about ensuring that as technology advances, our people advance with it. Because if the Bahamas does not invest in AI governance, education, and protection, then we are not preserving our jobs or our culture, and we are risking both. Madam President, Progress has always met resistance, from electricity to the internet to digital banking, but every generation has two choices: to resist change or to responsibly lead it. Madam President, this resolution is not about technology alone. It is definitely about leadership. We are being asked whether the Bahamas will shape the future or be shaped by it. And I simply state, let us lead. Let us lead by embracing technology responsibly. Let us lead by standing shoulder to shoulder with our Caribbean brothers and sisters. And let us lead by proving that small island nations can have big digital vision. As Prime Minister Mia Mottley reminds us, we are not defined by the size of our population, but by the scope of our vision. Let me repeat that once again. We are not defined by the state of our population, but by the scope of our vision. So let our vision be bold, let it be ethical, and above all, let it be Bahamian. Because while AI may be artificial, our responsibility to protect our people, our privacy, and our progress is very, very real. I rest.
As many are as in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed. The chair recognizes Senator Dylan Grant.
Madam President, I move that the business of the Senate be suspended for 15 days.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate be suspended 15 minutes. As many are as in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The business of the Senate is suspended for 15 minutes. When the business of the House was suspended 15 minutes ago, we were at resolutions. Are there any further resolutions? The chair recognizes Senator Rayangelo Seymour.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Madam President, whereas Junkanoo is recognized as a cornerstone of Bahamian cultural identity, heritage, creativity, resilience, and unity among the Bahamian people. And in 2023, UNESCO officially inscribed Junkanoo on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity, thereby solidifying its global significance and providing a platform for greater international visibility. Whereas the government of the Bahamas has introduced the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Act to formalize the governance, regulation, and management of Junkanoo as a national institution. And whereas the proposed act seeks to establish a statutory body with oversight for Junkanoo parades, funding, cultural preservation, and stakeholder collaboration across all islands. And whereas concerns have been expressed by various stakeholders regarding the potential impact of the current iteration of this act on community participation, artistic freedom, financial transparency, and equitable representation among Junkanoo groups. Be it resolved that the members assembled for the third session of the National Youth Parliament of the Bahamas shall engage in an open discussion on the implementation of the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Act in its current iteration, considering its potential impact on the future of Junkanoo as both a cultural and national treasure. Madam President, I rise this afternoon with great pride and conviction in full support of the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Act. Madam President, Junkanoo is not just another festival on our calendar. It is the very heartbeat of our nation. It is the sound of our ancestors echoing through drums and cowbells. It is the vibrant thread that weaves together our history, our artistry, and our unity as Bahamians. From Bimini to Inagua, from Grand Bahama to Auckland, Junkanoo, Madam President, is the one cultural force that transcends island boundaries, class, and creed. When the rhythm hits Bay Street, it does not ask where you are from. It simply reminds you that you are Bahamian. In 2023, Madam President, the world finally caught up to what we've always known when UNESCO inscribed Junkanoo on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. That was a historic moment. It placed the Bahamas among a distinguished group of nations whose cultural expressions have global value and significance. But, Madam President, with global recognition comes global responsibility. UNESCO's designation is not just an award, it is a call to action. It requires us to safeguard, manage, and sustain this cultural heritage for generations yet unborn. And that, Madam President, is why this bill, the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Act, is both timely and necessary. For far too long, the management and development of Junkanoo have lacked a unified structure. Every parade, every group, and every island has operated under its own system with limited coordination, inconsistent funding, and at times, overlapping responsibilities. We have seen disputes over judging, allocation of funds, and representation. We have seen the same cultural soldiers give their fight year after year, Madam President, with little institutional support. But, Madam President, a new day is upon us because this act changes just that. It creates a National Junkanoo Authority, a statutory body that will provide a clear, consistent, and transparent framework for the governance of Junkanoo across the Bahamas. The authority will have responsibility for overseeing the organization and management of all Junkanoo parades, coordinating funding and sponsorships, promoting Bahamian culture and Junkanoo internationally, developing training and apprenticeship programs for young artists, and ensuring that every island has representation in the national Junkanoo system. Madam President, this is not just about taking control from the people. It's about empowering our Bahamian people. It's about giving Junkanooers a seat at the decision-making table with the resource and structure they need to grow. The act envisions an authority that includes voices from across the spectrum, from Junkanoo leaders and cultural practitioners to youth representatives, Family Island delegates, and government officials. That level, Madam President, of collaboration is exactly what Junkanoo needs in this new era. Madam President, I want to address one concern that has surfaced, that this bill might stifle artistic freedom or local creativity. Madam President, with all due respect, I disagree. The National Junkanoo Authority will not tell a group how to paste, how to design, or to even rush. What it will do is provide the environment and the resources to let the creativity flourish sustainably. It will help standardize fair judging, manage disputes transparently, and ensure funding is distributed equitably, not based on favoritism or politics, but based on merit and accountability. And Madam President, let's be honest, for far too long, Junkanoo groups have struggled financially. Costumes cost thousands. Materials are expensive. Sponsorships are unpredictable. But Madam President, again, a new day is upon us. With this authority, we can create a funding system that is reliable, it is auditable, and fair. That alone is a victory for every Bahamian artist and Junkanoo group leader. Beyond that, Madam President, the economic and cultural potential of this bill is enormous. With proper management, Junkanoo can be more than a summer tradition. It can become a year-round industry. Imagine training centers where young Bahamians learn costume design, music arrangement, sound engineering, and event production. Skills that can lead to jobs, entrepreneurship, and cultural export. Imagine, just imagine with me, annual Junkanoo festivals in our Family Islands attracting tourists and generating local income. Imagine Bahamian costume showcase at international exhibitions representing our creativity to the world. That is what this bill sets the foundation for. It transforms Junkanoo from a once-a-year celebration into a pillar of national development. Madam President, culture and economy are not enemies, they are partners, and this act bridges them beautifully. It allows the Bahamas to protect Junkanoo's soul while unlocking its potential as a drive of innovation, tourism, and national pride. And Madam President, let us not overlook the educational aspect. It is through this National Junkanoo Authority, schools can partner to develop cultural study programs, teaching our children the origins of Junkanoo, the craftsmanship behind it, and the teamwork it represents. Junkanoo can become a part of our curriculum, not just our calendar. Madam President, this bill is visionary. It ensures that our heritage will not fade, that our culture will not be lost to commercialization or neglect. It gives Junkanoo a home, not in government offices, but in the very heart of national policy. So yes, Madam President, I understand the skepticism, but I also understand progress. And progress, Madam President, sometimes requires change. The National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Act represents that change, structured, responsible, and patriotic change. It ensures that 50 years from now, when our children stand on Bay Street or on a Family Island square and hear the first drumbeat, they will not just see a parade, Madam President. They will see a legacy that we in this hall protected, preserved, and has passed on. Madam President, I say one more time, this is what a new day looks like. Madam President, I support this bill, not just as a piece of legislation, but as a promise to our Bahamian people, a promise that the culture of the Bahamas will forever remain in the hands of Bahamians. Because Junkanoo is not just art, it is our identity, it is our freedom, and it is definitely our future. Madam President, with strong conviction, with strong passion, and proudly, and passionately, I stand before you today in support of the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Act. I rest. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Honorable Senators, the chair recognizes Senator LaShante Sampson.
Madam President, I rise to second the resolution. I also rise this afternoon as both a former junkaneur and a development professional, two identities that pull in opposite directions at this moment. One is driven by rhythm, but the other by reform. But both are guided by the same conviction, that culture, when properly understood, is not a sideshow of national life, but it's its engine. This year, I had the opportunity to attend Festa 15 in Barbados, where the Bahamas concluded its country night with the world's greatest showcase, Junkanoo. I was proud to share with my regional colleagues what makes me Bahamian. But after the event, my Bajan friend and fellow youth leader, Caleb Brathwaite, reposted the performance on Instagram with an overlay of music from the Valley Voice. Now, he didn't know any better, but I have never felt so misunderstood and disrespected in my life.
Wow.
Because I am a proud Saxon superstar.
Yes.
While anecdotal, that moment reminded me of something deeper. While the world may celebrate Junkanoo, only Bahamians truly understand it. Its rivalries, its roots, and its role in defining who we are. And perhaps that is where the heart of this debate lies. We all want Junkanoo to thrive, but we differ on how to propel it. It will survive with or without legislation, but the question is whether it will evolve. Let me be clear. Junkanoo has never depended on any government to survive. It has endured social change, economic hardship, and even a global pandemic. Yet, continuity is not the same as sustainability. If we want Junkanoo to endure as a viable cultural industry and not just a seasonal celebration, then we must invest in the systems that make it sustainable: data, policy, and professional capacity. During Cari Festa, it was said that if any country is serious about its creative sector, it must start with data. And that stuck with me. Because while we have immense pride in Junkanoo, we do not have enough data on its employment footprint, economic impact, or supply chains. And that, to me, is what the National Junkanoo Authority could provide: coordination, measurement, and positioning for investment. But even in this optimism, I acknowledge the concerns of the Bahamian people: political interference. The proposed bill allows the minister to appoint the authority's board, and many worry that this makes Junkanoo a political instrument rather than a cultural one. I share this fear, but I believe that the way forward rests in the institutionalization of representation, ensuring Junkanooers, artisans, choreographers, and musicians sit beside administrators and policymakers. We should not rest unless the authority reports publicly on its funding, decisions, and partnerships. We should not rest if appointments are not transparent. But we also cannot keep rejecting structure simply because it could be misused. Our responsibility is to build systems resilient enough to outlast whoever occupies the chair or serves as the governing party. And Madam President, if I may speak candidly, this is one of my greatest frustrations as a young professional committed to national development. I do not profess loyalty to any political party, but I am radically loyal to the progress of this nation. Yet too often in the Bahamas, we plan national development in 5-year increments, with each new administration undoing the work of the last. That cycle of doing and undoing, of rebranding and restarting, leaves our institutions unstable and our potential unrealized. The deeper value of the National Junkanoo Authority, or any national body worth creating, is that it should represent permanence beyond politics, a framework that endures leadership changes and protects cultural vision from the volatility of electoral cycles. And so, if this bill is to mean anything, it must address more than parade management. Culture must be deeply embedded in national development, recognizing that its strength lies in its people who transfer skills generation after generation. When we legislate for culture, we must also incentivize it, because policy without human investment is policy without pulse. And Madam President, when UNESCO inscribed Junkanoo on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity in 2023, it gave us a greater responsibility. We now sit among nations that have turned heritage into industry and art into diplomacy. A properly structured National Junkanoo Authority can be that catalyst, linking heritage to education, tourism, and regional influence. In diplomatic terms, this is what we call soft power, the ability to persuade and connect through who we are and not just what we sell. Junkanoo will continue whether or not this bill passes. It always has. But if we want to grow beyond Bay Street, we must balance heritage with strategy. This bill should not make Junkanoo political, nor should it leave it dependent. It should create the conditions for practitioners to lead, for communities to benefit, and for culture to contribute meaningfully to national development. So my position is clear. Modernize, but do not monopolize. Formalize, but do not fossilize. Govern, but never gatekeep. The success of cultural policy will not be measured by how much it controls, but by how well it empowers. And if we get that balance right, then maybe the next time the world sees Junkanoo, they'll not just borrow its sound, but understand its soul. But if all else fails, as of November 2025, the Shell Saxon Superstars will still have their fourth consecutive
Honorable Senator.
With that, I yield to the floor.
Honorable Senator. Honorable Senator. It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas Junkanoo is recognized as the cornerstone of Bahamian cultural identity, heritage, creativity, resilience, and unity among the Bahamian people, and in 2023, UNESCO officially inscribed Junkanoo on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity, thereby solidifying its global significance and providing a platform for greater international visibility. And whereas the government of the Bahamas has introduced the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Act to formalize the governance, regulation, and management of Junkanoo as a national institution. And whereas the proposed act seeks to establish a statutory body with oversight for Junkanoo parades, funding, cultural preservation, and stakeholder collaboration across all islands. And whereas concerns have been expressed by various stakeholders regarding the potential impact of the current iteration of this act on community participation, artistic freedom, financial transparency, and equitable representation among Junkanoo groups. Be it resolved that the members assembled for this third session of the National Youth Parliament of the Bahamas shall engage in open discussion on the implementation of the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Act in its current iteration, considering its potential impact on the future of Junkanoo as both a cultural and national treasure. As many? The chair recognizes Senator Dr. Brandon Bethel.
Thank you. And is potentially our greatest contribution to humanity's intangible culture, Junkanoo. As we all know, our economy is dominated by tourism. Millions of people from across the world travel immense distances to enjoy that which we take for granted. Crystal clear waters, white or pink sand beaches, and fair weather that satisfies even the staunchest of critics. However, it is Junkanoo that is the main draw on our major holidays. For the past few months, much ink has been spilled on the management of Junkanoo, with my colleagues both in this House and in Parliament speaking on the emergence of the National Junkanoo Authority Bill of the Bahamas 2025. I believe that while it contains many articles that are arguably crucial for Junkanoo to continue as it should in the future, I am concerned that the number of committees that are outlined by the bill may prove to not only increase the general bureaucracy of the government, but also commit the government to additional financial commitments when our purse strings should be tightened in the spirit of fiscal responsibility. Madam President, the financial resources that for this are outlined clearly in Part 4 and can be derived from a diverse array of sources, with accounting thereof also described in detail. Importantly, Parliament can appropriate funds, and I quote, for the carrying out of the purposes of this Act, and the Minister of Finance, who by law is also the Prime Minister, can advance, I quote, monies to the authority. While I have confidence that our leaders will uphold the integrity of their elected offices, I freely confess that they too are human, and in circumstances both ordinary and extraordinary, may fall victim to political biases. The large committees I previously mentioned would almost certainly engender emergent properties such as these, regardless of vigorous attempts to inhibit this behavior. Thus, an independent body, separate and distinct from any arm of the government, should be invited to monitor not only the finances of the authority, but to ensure that blatant partnership be held to a minimum, as we know it cannot be eradicated. The governing and opposition parties both must both hold joint responsibility for the managing of the authority, as no one party can hold universal and absolute power. Madam President, I close just as I opened. All Bahamians are united by the spirit of Junkanoo. This bill seeks to provide a solid foundation to ensure that our heritage is safeguarded for those that have led the way, those that are still with us now, and our children that we have yet to bring into this world. Junkanoo is a way of life for our people, as it has been almost since the beginning. I wish to see it remain a way of life for our people until the sun sets one final time on earth. Thank you.
As many.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Fellow youth heroes of this honorable Youth Senate, I echo the words from the 2025 song by Don West. 3 words in particular: send it back. As an English language, English literature, and public speaking instructor for over a decade, I love to look within the stories of old and new, to find wisdom and to learn truth. In An Evening in Guanima's second edition, authored by the great Patricia Glinton Miekulis, there exists a folk tale titled The People Who Became Stars, that was written on the thematic premise that when individual efforts fail, a shared purpose transforms everything. The story tells of villagers who struggled to harvest enough food during a long drought. Everyone worked only for their own households, and the land seemed to resist them. Eventually, an elder convinced the people to work for the village, not from it. United, they harvested more food than ever, hence becoming symbolic reminders that when the why shifts to community, blessings multiply. From this folk tale, we learn an important moral. Purpose rooted in community transformed struggle into abundance. And it is this very folk tale, often used in local teachings about collaborative progress, that's used as a narrative fit for describing organizational transformation. Madam President, every national endeavor in our nation requires collaborative transformation. For example, students learn and grow and become decent citizens in our nation thanks to the teamwork of teachers, staff, administrators, policymakers, trade unions, parents, and community partners throughout our educational system. None can do it without the other. However, does this truth sit at the focal center of this story on the rise of the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Act? No one debates Junkanoo as both a cultural and national treasure. No one debates the collective work relationship between the government of the Bahamas and the Junkanoo Corporation of New Providence, the JCNP. And thanks to their collaboration over the years, our Bahamas continues to boast a unique cultural event like none other throughout the world. But after personally interviewing, sitting down and speaking to youth and our people who are directly impacted in Junkanoo, the facts have become clear to me, Madam President, and I make them clear to these very chambers. We all have a collective desire for Junkanoo in this country to be financially stable and sustainable, where its books will be annually audited, its operating body can work to help and handle its own expenses and bills. We all want the alleged accusations of perceived bias, favoritism, and mismanagement to cease, so that all complaints are properly heard, investigated, and settled without unlawful repercussions. We want all Junkanoo groups in their respective categories to have fair and equitable opportunities to succeed on Bay Street. We want alleged accusations of rule changes and result shiftings post-parade to fade away so that our collective people can stop being discouraged from participating and would develop a level of trust in the judging process. Yes, we want a neutral operating body that would not interfere in the individual Junkanoo group business and would fully abide by legal rulings set forth in the event of Junkanoo group disagreements. We want Junkanoo to never be threatened to be closed. We don't want it to be held hostage. We want it to continue to be a unique and indispensable element of both our seasonal revenue and our national expression. These are the goals that we share as a country. But, Madam President, are we moving towards achieving these goals together? Just like how in that folktale, families had great difficulty collecting harvest in preparation for the drought on their own, are we introducing the NJA on our own? The end is justified, but are the means as well? Did the birth of this act occur at the table between our government, our independent stakeholders, our Junkanoo groups, and the JCNP? Does this act showcase the collective desires and goals of all of the parties involved? Or is someone being shunned at the table? Where is the social dialogue, Madam President? Where is the collective agreement? The NJA can work, but as the elder noted to the village, it will only work if we, the people, work for the nation and not from it. Some things could have been changed in this act, Madam President, if it actually happened together with the people. For example, the NGA's composition should not be so top-heavy. It should be more balanced between the stakeholders, like including Junkanoo group representatives and moving the directors and representatives on page 8, Article 5, Section 2, subsections F through M, move them to the ex officio members so that they don't have any voting or quorum power. United together, Madam President, the minister's power should be reduced to appointing only, not to dismiss people. And the committee should have more autonomy to operate its affairs and produce reports to the nation on all of its operations. United, the JCNP should be fully integrated into this framework. My final
Senator,
minute, Madam President.
I give you permission to finish.
Thank you so much. So as to avoid bureaucracy and overlap, and to usher a new wave of collective Junkanoo mastery and integrity. But if this does not happen united, my colleagues, its success would be at risk. Think about our collective progression as a whole. Let's formally request that collaboration be the focal point for all of us as a nation, beginning with this National Junkanoo Authority Act. Let this be the moment where we choose unity over uncertainty, where we choose to build Junkanoo with the people and not for the people. I repeat, Madam President, send it back. Thank you.
As many? The chair recognizes Senator Hannah Miller.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, before I begin, I would like to offer condolences to the family and loved ones of Madeline Thompson, the young student who passed away from St. Augustine's College. Madam President, fellow senators, and the spirited youth of the Bahamas, it is an honor to stand here today providing my first contribution in this honorable place. I rise today with pride in my heritage and purpose in my heart. We are not here merely to debate resolutions. We are here to protect legacies, to question systems, and to shape the future of our culture. And today, that culture is Junkanoo. Madam President, Junkanoo is not just a parade. It is not just a seasonal festivity. It is the heartbeat of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It was born out of resistance, shaped in the shadows of slavery, and acted as a vehicle that has carried forward generations, those who have refused to let their spirit be silenced. It is the artistry of our ancestors, the innovation of our youth, and the pride of our Bahamian people. UNESCO has recognized Junkanoo as an intangible cultural heritage of global significance. But we recognized it long before the world did. We recognized it in the early morning hours on Bay Street, in the painstaking pasting of crepe paper, in the echo of cowbells and the thud of goatskin drums. Junkanoo is ours, and it deserves more than screaming, "Who are we?" in the early morning drive. It deserves protection, investment, and respect. That is why the resolution before us to establish the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas demands our full attention. Because while the intent may be noble, the execution raises serious concerns. Madam President, I want to be clear. I am not a Junkanooer. However, I am a diehard Saxon. I am advised, Madam President, that the average costume costs at least $3,000. $3,000 per person. And for those querying seed funding, I am advised by Junkanooers that that is a drop in the bucket for what is actually spent by groups. Madam President, these are everyday Bahamians, students, parents, artisans who pour their savings, their time, and their talent into this cultural gift. If we are to create an authority to oversee Junkanoo, it must be one that uplifts the people who build it from the ground up, not one that adds layers of bureaucracy without addressing the real burdens faced by participants. And speaking of bureaucracy, Madam President, let us examine the proposed structure. In Part 2, Section 5 of the Act, it states that 17 members are appointed solely by the minister. 17, not elected, not nominated by the Junkanoo community, appointed. This removes autonomy. It centralizes control, and it risks politicizing a cultural institution that should be governed by the people who live it, who breathe it, and build it. Furthermore, Madam President, we must address the confusion surrounding existing bodies. The JCNP and the NJC already exist. They have played roles, however imperfect, in organizing and promoting Junkanoo for decades. Yet, this resolution offers no clarity on how these entities will interact with the new authority. Will they be dissolved? Will they be absorbed? Will they be reformed? The lack of definition breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds distrust, which is why there is so much confusion in this Junkanoo sphere. And it now has the wider Bahamas on pins and needles, wondering if they are coming to Bay Street or going to Gladstone Road to watch everyone else.
Right.
Madam President, we are in a time in our country where the average person is struggling to survive. Mental health is at a decline. Our women and our children are being abused. Persons are using Junkanoo as an outlet to ease their minds and as a positive activity. We cannot afford to destabilize the very institutions that have kept Junkanoo alive, especially without a clear plan for transition and collaboration. And perhaps most troubling of all is the timing. Why is this bill being passed in the middle of Junkanoo season, Madam President? This is a time when groups are focused on designing, fundraising, and rehearsing, not deciphering legislation. The timing feels rushed. It feels disconnected from the rhythm of the community. And it raises the question, why? I would recommend that this bill be revisited after the Junkanoo season to provide a smoother transition for all stakeholders. Madam President, I do not stand here to reject progress. I stand here to demand thoughtful progress. If we are to create a national Junkanoo authority, let it be one that is transparent, inclusive, and accountable. Let it be one that provides inspiration, not just oversight. Let it be one that respects the historical significance of Junkanoo while supporting its future evolution. Let it be one that listens. Listen to those who spend sleepless nights in the shack
crafting beauty from cardboard, styrofoam, and crepe paper. Listens to the youth who see Junkanoo not just as a tradition, but as the opportunity to better themselves. Listens to the elders who remember when Junkanoo was resistance, not just entertainment. Listens to the family islands whose voices are too often left out of the national conversation. Madam President, as a young Bahamian, I envision a future where Junkanoo is exported to the world not as a spectacle, but as a symbol of who we are. I envision Junkanoo as a driver of economic opportunity, artistic excellence, and national pride. But the future will not come from the top-down control. It will come from the bottom-up empowerment. So today, I urge this Youth Senate to demand clarity, equity, and accountability. Let us be the generation that gave Junkanoo its rightful place on Bay Street, but in the hall, not just on Bay Street, but in the halls of policy, in the chambers of governance, and in the hearts of every Bahamian child. Let us not pass legislation for Junkanoo. Let us build legislation with Junkanoo. Thank you, Madam President.
As many honorable senators, the chair recognizes Senator Jordan Clark.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I, along with Senator Miller, I'm not a Junkanooer, but what I can share, Madam President, is that since moving back home in 2020, I've become a proud Valley boy. Madam President, I fully support the resolution to implement the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas, a bold and visionary step towards safeguarding one of the nation's most powerful symbols of identity, Junkanoo. Junkanoo is not just a parade, Madam President. It is the heartbeat of the Bahamian culture, the living rhythm of our people's creativity, resilience, and unity. And yes, as a result, the resolution reminds us in 2023, UNESCO officially recognized Junkanoo on the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. That recognition was not merely ceremonial, though, Madam President. It was a call to action, a global acknowledgement that this art form deserves structured protection, investment, and preservation. Madam President, and I say, this act is the answer. Junkanoo has been governed by temporary committees and shifting structures for far too long. The NJA seeks to end that cycle by creating a permanent statutory body responsible for managing, preserving, and promoting Junkanoo across all Bahamian islands. Strengthening cultural governance in the Clause 3 of the bill formally establishes the authority as a corporate body with perpetual succession, allowing it to own property, enter into contracts, and manage its own affairs. This ensures stability and continuity so that no matter the administration, Madam President, the future of Junkanoo remains protected under law. Clause 4 lays out the authority's core functions: to develop Junkanoo as both a cultural and commercial enterprise, promote it nationally and internationally, and create a sustainable funding framework for future generations. The bill states that the authority will facilitate, preserve, manage, and continue to develop Junkanoo as a viable national, cultural, and commercial enterprise. This is how we transform Junkanoo from an event to an industry. Building an inclusive island-wide system, one of the most progressive elements of this act is the creation of the local Junkanoo committees on every island in Clause 11. The family islands have been underrepresented in national cultural planning for far too long. This act changes that by empowering local artists, builders, and musicians to influence Junkanoo policy and funding at a community level. This is not centralization, Madam President. It is structured inclusion. Empowering artists, generating economic growth according to a 2022 report from the Inter-American Development Bank. The cultural and creative industries in the Caribbean have a potential to contribute up to 10% of national GDPs when properly formalized and marketed, Madam President. Junkanoo is a ready-made creative economy, an exportable art form with music, costume design, tourism, and merchandising potential. Clause 4, Item G of the Act mandates that the authority to identify and seek dedicated and sustainable funding for Junkanoo. That means real grants, structured investment, and technical support for craftsmen, musicians, and costume builders. Clause 21 goes further by allowing the authority to create reserve funds for grants, scholarships, and vocational programs, Madam President, helping to train the next generation of cultural professionals. When we create Junkanoo as a national industry, not just a seasonal expense, we unlock opportunity. As cultural scholar Nicolette Bethel once wrote, Junkanoo is both art and economy. It is the one time every year every Bahamian becomes both creator and entrepreneur. Transparency and accountability, Madam President. Critics have raised concerns about transparency. The Act addresses those head on. Clause 29 requires the authority's accounts to be audited by the Auditor General and laid before Parliament within 1 month. It further authorizes additional audits at any time, ensuring financial oversight comparable to public accounts. Additionally, Clause 12 compels every member of the authority, all 17 of them, Madam President, and more, to declare conflicts of interest in writing, a safeguard for ethical governance. So when we speak of transparency and accountability, let us acknowledge that this act embeds those very principles. Preserving heritage and inspiring the future of Junkanoo is now a part of UNESCO's intangible heritage for humanity, joining traditions such as Jamaica's reggae and Trinidad's steel pan. With that recognition comes responsibility, Madam President. UNESCO urges member states to ensure that recognized traditions are safeguarded through national policy frameworks. This act, Madam President, fulfills that to the international community. Clause 4, Item F, explicitly directs the authority to collaborate with UNESCO and other cultural organizations, ensuring that Bahamian cultural policy aligns with global standards. And perhaps, most importantly, Clause 10 establishes a Junior Junkanoo Committee, Madam President. Yes, ensuring that young Bahamians not only inherit, but innovate in this art form. As the late Sir Sidney Poitier said, the greatest gift you can give to the next generation is not what you can build for them, but what you build within them. Through this authority, building within them pride, purpose, and possibility. Conclusively, Madam President, this bill is not about bureaucracy. It is about building and continuing a legacy. It is about ensuring that every beat of every drum and every brushstroke on a costume continues to echo through Bahamian history. With the establishment of the NJA, we will secure stable, accountable funding for Junkanoo, empower artists, educators, and family island communities, strengthen international partnerships through UNESCO, and transform cultural passion into national prosperity. Let us move forward with unity and vision, knowing that when the cowbells ring and the drums beat, they are not just sounds of celebration. They are sounds of a nation declaring, we are Bahamian, and this is who we are. We are Junkanoo, Madam President.
As many the chair recognizes Senator Kay Riva Roll.
Thank you, Madam President. But before I begin, I just want to ensure my learned colleague, Senator Sampson, that her Bayesian friend has an ear for beautiful music. She did that. You tell I said so. She did that. Oh, he did that. All. Today, I rise to contribute to this important debate on the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Bill, a bill that aims to formalize, regulate, and promote one of our greatest national treasures, Junkanoo. I think we can all agree that there are about 4 things that Bahamians really don't play about: their religion, their money, their politics, and their Junkanoo. Amen. Madam President, Junkanoo is not just a festival. It's not just music or color or competition. Like my learned colleague has already stated, it's a living expression of Bahamian identity, creativity, and resilience. From rhythmic sounds of the goatskin drum to the shimmer of the crepe paper underneath the streetlights, Junkanoo is how we remember where we came from and imagine who we can become. So when we talk about a National Junkanoo Authority, we are talking about who gets to guide, protect, and evolve that identity. There are a few independent groups that oversee the production of Junkanoo across our Bahama land. And for a lot of Junkanoo connoisseurs, this authority bill is seen as a great step in the right direction, while there are other organizations who may have differing views. Many have argued that the progress of Junkanoo has been hindered by fragmented leadership, inconsistent funding, and a lack of a unified vision. The establishment of this authority could possibly bring structure, sustainability, and opportunity. The National Junkanoo Authority Bill proposes a creation of a governing body dedicated solely to the promotion, regulation, and preservation of Junkanoo. This is a bold and necessary step. It recognizes Junkanoo's significance and offers a framework to protect it from commercial exploitation, political interference, and cultural erosion. In its current iteration, the authority will have powers to oversee standards, license participants, manage funding, and promote research and education about Junkanoo's history and significance. Let's take, for example, how our students from preschool to high school participate in our junior Junkanoo parades. Imagine the participation and awareness of Junkanoo within our youth and young adults if the school curriculum were equipped with formal Junkanoo programs, as my other learned colleague has suggested. Imagine Bahamian artisans being able to export costumes or host Junkanoo workshops abroad. Imagine data being used to measure cultural tourism so that Junkanoo artists earn what they deserve. These are real possibilities if this authority is implemented with the right vision and integrity. However, Madam President, we must also be careful. While structure can preserve culture, it can also control it. We must ensure that the National Junkanoo Authority does not become a bureaucratic gatekeeper that stifles the very creativity that it is meant to protect. And that is a fare for many grassroots Junkanooers and those who enjoy and embrace this beautiful display of love, creativity, and culture. Junkanoo was born in rebellion for freedom. It was created by people who had no authority but their rhythm, no permission but their passion. And if we are not careful, we could be creating a system that tells the very people who are Junkanoo how to be Junkanoo. But Madam President, I believe the true success of this bill will not be measured by how neatly it is written, but how widely it listens. If this authority empowers Junkanooers, funding their ideas, protecting their intellectual property, and expanding their reach, then this could be a landmark in Bahamian cultural policy. Yes. But if it centralizes power, limits creative freedom, or turns passion into paperwork, then we risk turning a living culture into a managed event. In closing, Junkanoo deserves both protection and possibility. This bill is our chance to do what our ancestors did. Take something new, take something old and make it new again. Let the National Junkanoo Authority be not a fence, but a foundation to be implemented with wisdom, transparency, and inclusivity. Built strong enough to preserve our traditions, yet open enough to let the next generation innovate and globalize our culture. Because Junkanoo is not just ours to inherit, it's ours to build, improve, enjoy, and pass on. So we must work together to protect Junkanoo as a vibrant cultural and national treasure so that it continues to unite and inspire Bahamians for generations to come. Madam President, I yield.
As many the chair the chair recognizes Senator Rollner Paul.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I must begin the contribution this afternoon with Marcus Garvey, who taught his Caribbean people, a people without knowledge of their past, history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Madam President, if we were to analyze the document at hand today, it is simply a testament that our government is forcing us to embrace Junkanoo as a culture, not to forget it, not to expunge it, not to take it away, but let's make it better. Now, Madam President, this is a unique and rich legal document that stands tall, and it goes on a unique mission to preserve and build an indomitable foundation for our Junkanoo culture. While the legislation encompasses a variety of noteworthy provisions, but there are three things that took my attention rapidly: accountability, inclusion, and transparency. Madam President, I am not speaking because I love Junkanoo and I'm being biased, but I'm going to use the document at hand today. Firstly, without accountability, there is no trust, Madam President. Now, I want us to understand accountability is not an option, but it is an obligation. May I take your attention to Clause 13, Paragraph 3, that assigns individual responsibility to officers overseeing receipts, accounting, disbursement of funds, and management of property. Specifically, each officer is responsible for the efficient execution of duties, the supervision of accounts and assets entrusted to them, and strict compliance with prescribed rules and regulation. This framework demonstrates the legislation's commitment to fiscal integrity and operational oversight. Madam Speaker, it does not end there, but let us continue to dig deep in Clause 14, which requires the authority to prepare and submit comprehensive annual reports on its activities to the minister within 4 months after each fiscal year ends. Madam President, this is just the beginning of accountability. Now may I continue? I am a young man from the vivacious island of Abaco, so I gotta jump on the initiatives that include my family islands. This is what culture does, man. It unifies, it never divides. Section 5 of the said bill, which speaks to the composition of the authority, and my God, I must compliment the legislative man who took this time or her time to write this, because he says it must have representatives, not only from the capital or one island, but also from multiple jurisdictions and stakeholder groups. It's an opening, Madam President. Everyone has a seat at the table. Can you see the foundation that this bill is creating in our nation? Dennis Morrison asserts, the single most important ingredient in the recipe for success is transparency, because transparency builds trust. This principle is both operational and cultural within the context of the National Junkanoo Authority of the Bahamas Bill 2025. I must take your attention now to clauses 23 and 24 that compels the authority to develop and disclose a detailed annual budget, thereby ensuring stakeholders and the broader public must have insight into financial planning and all allocation of resources. Furthermore, Clause 25 extends this commitment by requiring the authority to present a comprehensive 3-year fiscal policy plan to the minister, clearly outlining fiscal objectives, strategic priorities, and anticipated expenditures. The cultural impact of these measures is significant. Transparency in this case, it is working as an effective mechanism that enhances the authority's legitimacy, fosters public engagement, and supports the shared investment of diverse communities in the preservation and evolution of Junkanoo. Madam President, rather than us debating this and being divided, let us see the bill in a different light. You love Junkanoo, I love Junkanoo. And if we love Junkanoo, let us pass this resolution today. I rest, Madam President.
As many as are in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say nay. Nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed. Further resolutions. Adjournment. The chair recognizes Senator Rollner Paul.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
Final adjournment. The chair recognizes Senator Rollner Paul.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator K. Riva Roll.
Madam President, I rise to second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn. As many as are in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned sine die.